Hello everybody and happy new year, because this is 2026. 2025 has come to an end, and as far as wrestling goes, we got a lot of really great stuff. It was a huge year, namely in the retirement of John Cena, and from top to bottom, we got amazing stuff throughout the year. Amazing matches, amazing events, amazing promos, breakouts of the year. It was filled with so much goodness. And to start off, our yearly tradition of naming the best that the year had to offer, let's start with the top 10 matches of 2025. Throughout the year, I've worked vigorously to nail down the top 10, and it was not easy. Trust me, there was so much good stuff from the start of the year to the end of the year, and I really try not to have any recency bias in this list. So let's start off with number 10, the number 10 match of the year from Wrestle Kingdom for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. We have Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino. Shota, somebody who I've been really trying to like, and like his time in New Japan, his time in the main event scene, and this match really warmed me up to that. His match against Will Ospreay was one of my favorites of all time, and I think this is his foray into the main event scene, although that's kind of dipped recently with them pulling back on him and putting him more in the tag scene and the trios scene. But this match was a great way to start the year for Shota Umino, and definitely a great entry into the title reign for Zack Sabre Jr. Next, number 9, from Full Gear, in a no disqualification match for the TNT Championship, we have Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe. This is where Mark Briscoe gained the TNT Championship and now currently reigns with that championship to date. This match was a great redemption for Mark Briscoe. It was him finally grasping that championship after all the strength, all the effort he's put into regaining that and taking it away from Kyle Fletcher, who had a dominant championship reign and also was a great entry into Kyle Fletcher's storyline as an individual after his championship match against Hangman Adam Page, where he lost, tried to regain himself, then had to suffer at the hands of Mark Briscoe. Number 8, at WWE's Crown Jewel. This is for the Crown Jewel Championship in 2025. This was Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes. You know, it's a big event for WWE. Say what you will about Crown Jewel and kind of their tourism pay-per-views that these kind of have become. Seth versus Cody culminating as the big champion versus champion match. This was everything that it was supposed to be, everything that it was led to be, and Seth finally getting one up on Cody. It was a tremendous match, and kind of continued to build up that name, Crown Jewel, and build up that championship. I forget who was in the match last time for that for the Crown Jewel Championship that Cody won. I think it was the same. I think it was Seth versus Cody, honestly. Maybe I'm misremembering, but I think that's what it was. Next, number 7, we have Adam Page versus Kyle Fletcher, the aforementioned prequel to Fletcher versus Briscoe. Page versus Fletcher was one of the best entries in Page's title reign as world champion, and definitely a milestone for Fletcher's career and his breakout. This was Fletcher's way to prove that he belongs in the main event scene, and kind of everyone doubting him at this point that he belongs. But he wasn't able to make it, to show that he still has something left to prove. And everything about this match was spectacular. I want to rewatch this match just because of how brutal and how beautiful this match was. At number 6, we have a surprising entry, one that might be a little controversial to people. Jon Moxley versus Kyle Fletcher at World's End in the semifinal match in the Continental Classic. I think this was the best match in the Continental Classic. You have Jon Moxley, who is on a losing streak. Not really a losing streak, but prior to the Continental Classic, or rather prior to when he starts regaining his momentum, he was on a terrible losing streak. Every match he had, he was losing. He tapped out. He lost himself. And this run in the Continental Classic, everything that happened at World's End and just prior, was Mox kind of trying to regain himself and find, somebody that's not just needing help from what's their group name? Death Riders. I couldn't remember their damn name. But this match was also meant a big deal for Kyle Fletcher too. And this was a proving ground for both of them, and Mox really showed that desperation in this match. And not just kind of everything leading up to this, what happened during the match too was spectacular. The way that Mox's body was worn down prior to this, the way that Kyle Fletcher's mentality was really just hit at prior to this. I think everything about this match worked so well and was a surprising match coming out of World's End. And 2025 overall, let's be honest. All right, next up, number 5. CM Punk versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I mean, this was the culmination of the Bloodline storyline. This was the culmination of CM Punk coming to WWE, and this was the start of the Vision. This was a huge checkpoint for WWE, and of course it happens at WrestleMania because it's their biggest show of the year. It is their capstone project, if you will. I loved everything about this match. I loved the swerve at the end, the reveal of Paul Heyman siding with Seth Rollins, which nobody expected. And, where this left Roman, where this left Punk. And it was, on top of that, just a really, really fun match that didn't have your typical Roman Reigns pacing. Normally his matches are very slow, very methodical, very, very, very slow. But this was thrilling. It was exciting. It was a CM Punk match. It was a Seth Rollins match. And on top of that, it had a Roman Reigns finish. I really loved everything about this match so much. Next, number 4, Toni Storm versus Mariah May at Revolution for the Women's Championship, the Hollywood ending match. And this was a brilliant way to kick off the year. And kind of, again, a culmination of everything that Toni Storm's character has led to this whole time. This was the pinnacle of storytelling at the moment. This was the Mariah May's character clashing with Toni Storm's character was the most exciting thing happening in wrestling at the time. I loved so much about this match, the way it ended, the visual of just the zoom out as the screen plays Finn or the end, whatever it played. Mariah May's body just laying there. Toni Storm retaining the championship. It's just such a shame that Mariah May fell off in NXT. The Blake Monroe character did not hit the same as it did in AEW. But that, I feel like, sells the match even more in that Toni Storm said to Mariah May, like, her punishment will be mediocrity. And kind of that's where she ended up. It's still this Mariah May story that we're telling right now. Next up at number 3, we have from Revolution once again, Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher in a steel cage match. But Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher is something that we've been waiting for, this kind of visceral blood feud between the two. Kyle Fletcher trying to outgrow his mentor, and Will Ospreay trying to get his friend back. This was everything put together, and like all of their emotions, all of their storylines put together in one match. And if you watch the press conference, I think it was for Sakura Genesis, right before Will Ospreay and Shota Umino were about to have their United States Championship match. I feel like this match was all of that feeling, all of that passion that Will Ospreay had in that promo put into one match. And sure, this was maybe like a couple years later, but Ospreay was looking for his successor back. This wasn't who he wanted to have left in his wake. This wasn't who he wants to have as his legacy, as his mentee. But Kyle Fletcher saw this as the only option. Saw this match, this brutal, really goddamn brutal match, as his way of proving himself. And that's what a lot of these Kyle Fletcher matches have been about, this common theme of proving himself. He's trying to break into that main event scene, force his way in, and it shows in his flashy entrance gear. It shows in how he wrestles. It shows in his catch line, "Say my full name." He wants to be recognized. And this steel cage match was everything beautiful. You know, the Spanish fly from the top of the cage. It was amazing. It was amazing. Next, number 2 from New Japan's Wrestle Dynasty, Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd. Now, this was probably one of the best ways to start the year. I loved this match so much. I was raving about it like every month since this match happened. I was raving about it. And this put Gabe Kidd on the map for me. Him defending New Japan from Kenny Omega, from AEW. And it was to the point where Chris Carlton, one of the English commentators for New Japan, like was in trouble for something he said about AEW, how they kept stealing, you know, their people. They stole Okada. They obviously, you know, they have Kenny. They've stolen some of their biggest names that they've had. Takeshita as well. Look at him. Although he was more DDT. Gabe Kidd was, you know, looking at this and saying, no, New Japan. This was starting kind of an AEW versus New Japan kind of thing. And I think there would have been more of that had Chris Carlton not gone as far as he did, although I don't think he went far, but too far for AEW, for Tony Khan. But this match was brutal. This was putting Gabe Kidd on the map, especially after everything that he went through with his mental illness prior to this. And like, this was kind of a babyface turn for Bullet Club War Dogs, honestly. But they still maintained that brutality, that viciousness that, you know, Bullet Club War Dogs are known for. And, you know, I don't think where New Japan went after this was the best. I think this should have put Gabe Kidd in the world title scene. I think this should have put a New Japan versus AEW feud at Forbidden Door. Like, if you look at my video I did about potentially an AEW versus New Japan feud, I did at the beginning of the year. I'll go more in depth into that, but I think this match itself was, you know, it was such it was a beginning to something that should have been more. And it was all kind of encapsulated in just Gabe Kidd's gear, which were the training shorts for the New Japan Dojo. And they have the logo on them alongside the Bullet Club War Dogs logo. And, you know, you could tell, like, all of the stakes going into that match. and I just wish there was more to come out of it. All right, number one match of 2025 from Stardom's All-Star Grand Queendom in April. This was a World of Stardom title career versus career match. Loser leaves Stardom. Saya Kamitani versus Tam Nakano. Saya Kamitani got on the map with this match. She was recognizable since this, and it was sister versus sister. The storyline going to this match was Saya Kamitani was sidelined for a long period of time because Tam Nakano injured her, and all the love that they had for each other was thrown away in this match, and Saya wanted to eviscerate Tam, and Tam wanted her friend back. This was an emotional roller coaster, and I'm not even somebody who watches a lot of Stardom. I have watched a bit since the start of the year, and I'm trying to watch more in 2026, but at this point I hadn't watched much, and this still hit so hard for me. I loved this match from start to finish, and the final frame you're left on with Tam Nakano and Saya Kamitani embracing at the entryway of the ramp was art. That was pure art, and that is what I think of whenever I tell people that pro wrestling is a form of art. You show that frame to people. You show that shot. You show Saya Kamitani's entrance, which is just aura personified. I get chills when I see that entrance where she has the giant hate flag, dressed in all black with her mask. It is beauty. It is evil. It is, the peak heel in professional wrestling. And since then, Saya Kamitani has been just dominant. Sure, at Wrestle Kingdom this year, she lost to Sherry, but I think she's still going to maintain that dominance in professional wrestling in the years to come. So thank you all so much for watching the top 10 matches of 2025. Please check out my other videos coming soon. I'm going to have the top 50 pro wrestlers of 2025. I'm going to have top 10 under 30. I'm going to have the rookies of the year and tag teams of the year. So thank you all for watching. See you all next time. Bye-bye.